Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And welcome to Friday's DC Report. Henry Cavill is like no other actor. He's a geek, he's a nerd. He loves this shit. He loves comics, he loves Superman, he loves The Witcher game, and he was correcting them while filming every single time, telling them, this is not how this game works. This is not right. And they listen to him. They don't need someone to understand the Witcher game on that set and on location, because Henry Cavill knows everything. So in 2017, after Justice League, he said, listen, you fucked up this franchise. You got me to say a bunch of horrible shit for the marketing. You hacked my face. And from now on, I will not continue as this character unless we do things properly. So he had a pitch for them, which they rejected. And while he kept on refusing to return unless they did things properly and his way, they were putting shit out there via people like Grace Randolph that he was a diva who wanted more money. Well, Henry Cavill in the first film got less money than Amy Adams, Russell Crowe, and Amy Adams. Now, those two actors should be getting paid more than Henry because they're iconic actors. No question about that. Then, in BVS, he got less money than Ben Affleck. He didn't even get top billing in that film. So, money was never an issue for Henry. He's never been the highest payer in the DC Extended Universe because his reputation in this industry, and, he's not as big as other actors. He doesn't have the position of Ben Affleck, Russell Crowe, or Amy Adams. And he accepted that. Christopher Reeve got nowhere near the money of Gene Hackman and Marlon Brando and a lot of other actors like Glenn Ford in Superman the movie. But Henry is a nerd and he's fought for this character. And that's why I respect him. And he respects the fans, fans' right to speak, because the customer is even right. Even if you hate your customers, like I used to do working behind a deli counter in the Co-op supermarket, they are right because they provide your wages and your status. Without the consumer, you have nothing, and Henry understands this. And Henry would never have returned, would never be doing this Black Adam cameo unless he was getting movies. So now a very good source, a producer in the industry, is saying that not only did The Rock demand WB to bring him back to the DC Extended Universe, beginning with this Black Adam cameo, if all of this is true, of course, so he demanded it. The Rock demanded. But what I don't understand, and we'll get into the article very shortly, is who did he demand this to? Walter Hamada, Toby Emmerich, David Zaslav? Because basically David Zaslav wants what Henry Cavill wants, for Superman to be front and center in the new DC Extended Universe going forward, and Batman and Wonder Woman as well. That's what David wants. So Henry Cavill and David Zaslav are on the same page. So Henry wouldn't be returning without getting a Man of Steel sequel or some kind of Superman movie. Henry Cavill isn't a big fan of Superman in BVS. The film that he likes, that he thinks was a great representation of his Superman, was in Man of Steel. He wanted to continue that film. He wanted a direct sequel because David Goyer and Chris Nolan had written a second chapter for Man of Steel 2, which was going to continue the Codex story and the consequences of these billion Kryptonian life forms being inside of Cal, and what happens to Earth if they get out, if someone takes them out of him. That would have been a compelling, interesting story. So let's get to this. Henry Cavill's Superman sequel reportedly now in development. Now, this doesn't surprise me. People saying, oh, but has he got a new contract? He can't be in Black Adam without having a new contract. His previous contract expired yonks ago. Henry Cavill and his fans have been advocating for his return as DC's Superman for a long time, but it isn't until now that it seems the Man of Steel star may actually grab the cape from his closet and don the red and blue tights once again in a sequel to the Superman film. Supes was last seen in 2021 Zack Snyder's Justice League, which left a better taste than the 2017 version when Joss Whedon had to digitally burn Cavill's moustache off outside of the Justice League movies. Cavill's Superman has only appeared in one film other than his own, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. He almost appeared in Shazam, but a faceless body double took his place due to Warner Brothers' inability to determine Cavill's future as the hero. Many rumours have suggested that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has heard the cry from the fans that want more Cavill in the DCEU, constantly teasing that Superman will appear in his upcoming Black Adam movie, similar to how the two heroes met at the end of DC's League of Super Pets. Yes, that was a hint. At first I thought that's what he meant by Black Adam and Superman meeting. I thought this is shit, but that was the hint, wasn't it? As the new movie, The Flash, is rumoured to be a giant reset for the DCEU movies. But again, we must understand that that movie's happening, but there are changes that are being made and have been made. They're not changing that movie dramatically in its narrative, but Supergirl won't be replacing Superman. That's not going to happen now. That's obvious. Rumoured to be a giant reset for the DCEU movies. Now, I don't think the timeline we were going to get, we're going to get it now. They have made significant changes, but they haven't changed that movie so dramatically. Creating a new cinematic plan that doesn't have to worry about the bunch of botched blockbuster attempts in the early days of the DCEU. Some fans are worried that will mark the end of the line for Cavill's Superman hopes, since they can create a new Superman following that critical movie. Now, an industry insider is doubling down on his notion, claiming that Cavill is back in a big way as the fan favourite Kryptonian from Kansas. Man of Steel 2 Henry Cavill reportedly returns. Former Birth Movies Death Editor-in-Chief and industry insider David Ferrasi, now this is a very, very good source by the way, revealed on his Marvel Vision podcast that some behind-the-scenes evidence suggests Warner Brothers is making another Superman movie with Henry Cavill due to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's negotiations. When asked to give more detail, Farashi explained that Johnson went hard full court press on Warner Brothers and made them go to Henry Cavill, stating that the Black Adam actor is facilitating a new deal with Henry Cavill, including a new Superman film. This is what he said. I got some more information about this. It's not like specific, it's all behind the scenes stuff that I thought was kind of fascinating, which is that the reason why Henry Cavill has returned as Superman in Black Adam is because The Rock demanded it. Like he went hard full court press on Warner Brothers and made them go to Henry Cavill, and they had to sign a new deal with Henry Cavill, including saying they were going to develop a new Superman movie. And it was all because The Rock insisted. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if The Rock did this, but again, you know, who did The Rock do this with? Did he do it to the old leadership or the new leadership? That's very interesting. So was Henry always coming back, even under Hamada and Emmerich, who he fell out with? They weren't even on speaking terms anymore. So this is interesting. David's co-host, his brother Devon, joked that Warner Brothers may regret agreeing to The Rock's demand for a new Superman movie if it doesn't do well at the box office. What a stupid thing to say before anything's been done. To which Farashi admitted that they have now locked themselves into another Henry Cavill Superman by agreeing to Johnson's terms. However, Farashi reiterated once more that he's learned that Warner Brothers is working on a Henry Cavill movie. Not only is Henry Cavill going to be in Black Adam, my understanding is they're working on a Henry Cavill Superman movie. So, if this is true, colour me excited and extremely happy. This comes after many rumours that Henry Cavill's Superman would not only appear in Black Adam, but also in the yet-to-be-released Flash movie. Adding fuel to the fandom flame, viewer Anon tweeted that Henry Cavill fans are going to be happy moving forward with DC movies. The user then added that relations between Cavill and Warner Brothers have mended, and now it's not just the Black Adam scene that Superman could appear in. Now, I'll read you this quote in a minute. Look, There's no coincidence that all of a sudden Warner Brothers and Henry are on speaking terms, because the people who didn't get on with him, that fell out with him and weren't going to use his Superman again, have gone. They plan to replace him with a Superman of colour. Have you heard anything lately about that J.J. Abrams Tanahashi coach Superman movie? No, because it's dead and Cavill's back. So I don't know how effective The Rock's been here, because Zaslav wants Cavill as Superman, and that's what's happening. But it's interesting. I don't want to step on anyone's toes. These aren't my scoops to make, but I think Henry Cavill fans are going to be happy moving forward with DC movies. It seems like the bridge between WB and Cavill has been crossed, and it's not just a Black Adam scene. Again, it's because Henry Cavill is now dealing with a Warner Brothers he can deal with. Cavill's shaky future as DC Superman. It's always been curious why Warner Brothers doesn't jump on more Cavill Man of Steel content, but it's never been a question of whether Henry Cavill is on board with the idea of returning as Superman. The actor's already made it clear that there is still a lot of storytelling for him to do as Superman, also adding that he would absolutely love the opportunity. The thing is here, Henry has fought for the legitimacy of this character because he loves Zack Snyder. Zack cast him, but he doesn't agree with a lot of Zack's choices when it comes to Superman. There's no question about that. Rumblings around The Flash have suggested that Henry Cavill appears to be done as Superman following test screenings for the film. It doesn't necessarily negate the potential of his appearance, but it certainly seems that if he did appear, then it would somehow be the last appearance of Cavill's Kryptonian. No, not at all. Of course, this news comes months after the initial report, and the reports of Cavill being done in the DCEU in the Flash movie were months ago, and it was under Hamada and Emmerich. They've gone now. So things are changing, and changing quickly. But there's a lot of reports, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of snake oil salespeople trying to sell you scoops, and some of them are simply not true. The Flash film news claiming the Flash film is locked and finished, but some other news from the Wrap contradicts that. We'll get into that a little bit later on. This news comes months after the initial report, and The Flash was still doing reshoots up until early October. The report concluded that movies can change a lot in 15 months between the report and the film's scheduled release. With all of the constantly moving pieces in DC's film department, it wouldn't be unreasonable to think Superman has since been added to The Flash. I think that he has. That old report, forget it. It's done. And all the reports of him being killed as a baby were in the Flashpoint universe, not on Earth 1. Some may be thinking that this rumour doesn't exactly line up with what Warner Brothers' plans have been for Superman in recent years. In fact, the J.J. Abrams produced Black Superman project was reportedly in development, dead. I told you this months ago. But production on that has reportedly slowed. How can you slow something that never started? Since the company was purchased by Discovery, whether those plans are delayed or scrapped altogether, Cavill has been surrounded by more Superman chatter than anything involving Abrams' unmade movie. On the front of multiple ideas for Superman at the company, Man of Steel producer Charles Roven thinks Warner Brothers has to allow for multiple visions of Superman rather than sticking to one story. This supports new ideas like Abrams' Black Superman or CW's Superman and Lois. But to be fair, Roven said this months ago when they were going to do Black Superman. Things have changed since that. But it also encourages Warner Brothers to reconsider how many fans enjoy the vision of Henry Cavill's Superman. With the fandom for Henry's Superman, it's not all about the Snyderverse. There's many people who can't stand Henry's Superman in the Snyderverse, but love Henry as the character. So it's interesting. Regardless of what Warner Brothers pictures for the future of Superman in its DC films, it seems The Rock has made them realise that fans want to see Henry Cavill continue to be part of it, and now it's resulted in a sequel finally being made for 2013's Man of Steel. So, very, very interesting. Great article by the DC Direct, but let's get into it. How do I think The Rock's figured out here? I think that Zaslav and Discovery sat down and they said, right, how do we move forward? Do we replace Cavill? Is he a problem? Has he got too many opinions? Do we reset the DCEU and give a new Superman? And The Rock's clearly said, listen, people love him as Superman, as I've already said. The Snyderverse stans love him as Superman, and non-Snyderverse stans love him as Superman. He's as popular as Christopher Reeve was back in the day. If it isn't broken, don't fix it. But for Henry, elements of his Superman do need fixing. And he wants a more positive, inspirational Superman. And that takes me to my next point, the John Williams Superman theme that Snyderverse stans are losing their shit about. Listen, I understand why you're upset. Idea of Hope is Henry's theme. It's been used in all of his appearances in the DC Extended Universe. But basically, Zimmer's Idea of Hope is more mood music than an anthem. John Williams' Superman theme is a fucking inspirational anthem, and that's why they're using it. And for the Snyderverse propaganda merchants saying, oh, why don't they use the campy Batman TV series theme for Batman? Because it's inspirational. No, it's not the same. I love that theme, but no one's playing that on their movies. Williams' theme is played around the world for sporting events. When you hear it, you think of fucking Superman. That's why they're taking it. That's why it's going to be used, and it will probably be used in future Henry Cavill Superman content. You're going to have to accept this, guys, that we're going down this direction. Yes, the DCEU cast members playing these iconic DC characters will remain in their roles, including Ben Affleck, as well as Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa, maybe Ezra Miller, if they behave themselves. But what that means is it's consistency. It's not about restoring the Snyderverse. This is where we are now. Now, most of us are very excited about this. Now, I talk to a lot of fans. I have to talk to a lot of fans. So I get the mood right when I do these videos and when I'm on my social media. And a lot of the Snyderverse fans are actually okay with the John Williams theme. I know you're not going to believe that. There's a pocket of die-hard Snyderverse fans who don't care about Superman, DC. They just care about the integrity of the Snyderverse. I understand all arguments, but this is where we are. This is very exciting for me. I couldn't give a shit what he's wearing or what music he appears to in the scene in Black Adam or going forward. Henry is back as Superman. The number one thing, the only integrity I care about is the integrity and protecting the DC brand and protecting the Superman brand. And this is some of what David Zaslav's been talking about. So all of this is really good news. So I believe this guy, that we're getting another Superman film starring Henry Cavill as Clark, Kal, and Superman. Where in the continuity that will be, we'll have to wait and see to find out. But it's very exciting and it's awesome. So according to the Wrap, Ezra Miller has shot a day's worth of pickups. I wouldn't even call them reshoots. Now we now know that they did a bunch of extensive reshoots back in May to change whatever Zaslav wanted changed, obviously. So there are changes to this movie. I don't think they've changed the narrative or the storyline for Barry Allen and Flashpoint, but they've made certain changes to include Henry Cavill's Superman and not to delete what has gone before it. So when we talk about deleting the Snyderverse, they're not going to delete the universe that Zack introduced, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're restoring the Snyderverse either. So that's an update from the Wrap, because this is interesting, because yes, Ezra did a day's worth of pickups, I think, the other day, but the Flash Film News keep on insisting that the film is locked. The Flash movie at the moment is being reworked, but not in a big way. And I think that's what we can gauge from this. And I think it's very quickly going to be locked. And I think the Flash Film News are right to a certain extent, but they're still making little changes to it. And they're probably things that doesn't mess with the DC Extended Universe. What we don't know now is, will they still implement Walter Hamada's timeline, new timeline, which was originally going to be, Batgirl, Supergirl, blah, blah, blah. No, there will be defined differences to this movie, and I can't wait to find out what those defined differences will be. Margot Robbie reacts to Lady Gaga becoming new Harley Quinn. Since making her debut in Suicide Squad, Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn has become a staple of the DCEU and among the most iconic faces in the franchise. The Joker's famous love interest is so entangled in the Batman mythos at this point that many will forget she was a more recent addition to the DC universe. Unlike most of the legendary comic characters of today, Harley Quinn didn't actually originate in DC Comics. In fact, she only made her first appearance in 1992 episode of Batman the Animated Series before making the jump into the comics in the following year and later live action in 2016 Suicide Squad. For now, Robbie is the only actress to have brought Harley Quinn into live action, but that's all about to change with October 2024's Joker Folie à Deux. In musical sequel to the Oscar-winning hit, Lady Gaga will join Joaquin Phoenix's Arthur, aka Joker, as Harley Quinn, which is very exciting. Speaking to MTV News, the Suicide Squad's Harley Quinn actress Margot Robbie addressed Lady Gaga's casting as the same queen of crime in Todd Phillips' Joker Folie à Deux. Robbie shared her excitement in hearing of Gaga's casting, revealing she has always hoped for Harley Quinn to become a character who always gets passed from great actor to great actor. So you're saying you're a great actor. That's very humble of you, Margot. Anyway, it makes me so happy because I said from the very beginning, it's all I want. All I want is for Harley Quinn to be one of those characters the way like Macbeth or Batman always gets passed. You know, from great actor to great actor, and it's kind of like someone gets to do their Batman or someone gets to do their Macbeth or someone you know. The Australian actress compared the scenario to how she got to follow in Cate Blanchett's footsteps as she played Queen Elizabeth in 2018's Mary Queen of Scots before noting how she thinks Gaga will do something incredible with it. And I feel like in not so many cases are there female characters, Queen Elizabeth, I bet like beyond that, which I got to have a crack at as well, which I was honoured to do. I was like, wow, Cate Blanchett did Queen Elizabeth. I now get to. It's such an honour to have built a foundation strong enough that Harley can now be one of those characters that other actors get to have a go at playing, and I think she'll do something incredible with it. She actually says she's built foundations. That's interesting. Has she built foundations? I don't know. I think foundations were there until she ruined those foundations with Birds of Prey and her Extremist movie. Anyway, when will Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn return? We'll get into it. As Ben Affleck and Robert Pattinson are both currently active as Batman across different universes, DC has shown a clear willingness to have multiple actors occupy the same role at once. So Lady Gaga becoming Harley Quinn likely will have no impact on Margot Robbie's portrayal continuing going forward, but it will. The Suicide Squad director James Gunn already confirmed Robbie's Harley Quinn will be back in the DCEU. Back she will be, but for roles about as big as this. The only question comes down to when she next comes into play with the Suicide Squad 2, Peacemaker Season 2, or another project. She probably won't be gone for long. Gaga becoming Harley Quinn marks a major step for the character in live action, as she becomes the only second actress to tackle the role. But that's not to say there aren't more iterations of Harley Quinn to come, such as one within Robert Pattinson's The Batman universe, who tags along with Barry Coogan's Joker. Even if director Matt Reeves does eventually seek to introduce his own Harley Quinn, each of these takes on the characters will undoubtedly remain distinct. Robbie's will continue to be as comic booky as ever. Gaga will bring a musical interpretation, and the Batman universe will likely be a more realistic take. So, very interesting. So what do I make of this? To me, this is like Margot realising she's being squeezed out, because the Batman will probably do a version of Harley. The Joker sequel is doing a Harley as a lead character in the Joker sequel. So that's huge. So that's two potential Harley Quinns. What does this mean for Margot? Margot destroyed any chance of continuing front and centre as Harley Quinn alone in DC live action when, Birds of Prey went to shit because she wanted to make a shitty extremist movie that failed in every sense of the word. So this is my prediction for Margot's future as Harley. Cameos, cameos, cameos. That's all you're going to see. Maybe a few episodes in Peacemaker Season 2, but I don't think you'll ever see her fully like in her own movie again, like in Birds of Prey. So you will see her, but in fits and starts. You may see her appear in these upcoming DC Extended Universe movies, but I don't think we will see much of her. After James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, she said maybe Harley needs a break. She knew they were moving away from her Harley Quinn, and I think this is exactly what they're going to do. Lady Gaga is going to kill this role. I doubt very much you'll be thinking about Margot's Harley after Joker Folie à Deux in 2024. Now this is a strange one, by the way. David Ayer confirms he showed Suicide Squad director's cut to fan. He showed a fan the Ayer cut. Now this is a person who runs a Release the Ayer cut account on Twitter. So this is very curious. As calls to release David Ayer's cut of 2016 Suicide Squad continue, the director now confirms that he's shown his cut to a passionate fan by Ryan Northrop of Screen Rant. Now I read the fan's post and then it was quote tweeted by David saying facts. Now David all of a sudden, I think he's in London and he's posting again. He hadn't posted for a while. So this is very, very curious. What does this mean? As campaigns to release the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad continue, director David Ayer confirms that he's shown the cut to a fan. Released in 2016, Suicide Squad was met with overwhelmingly negative reviews from both critics and fans. Actually, some fans liked it and went back to see more. Like James Gunn's 2021 reboot, it was not a reboot. It was basically a continuation, right? It wasn't a direct continuation, a direct sequel to the first Suicide Squad, but it wasn't a reboot. I don't know why these nut jobs, right, these numbnuts keep on saying it was a reboot. The Suicide Squad, the film, chronicles the assembly of a top-secret government task force of supervillains who are tasked with saving the world. Suicide Squad introduced audiences to Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, Will Smith's Deadshot, and Jared Leto's controversial take on the Joker. After the poor reception to the theatrically released version of Suicide Squad, Ayer essentially disowned the film, claiming that interference from Warner Brothers ruined his original vision. This prompted many fans to campaign for Warner Brothers to release Ayer's cut of the film, which the director has confirmed exists. Fan demand to release his new cut were further bolstered by the success of a familiar campaign to release Zack Snyder's cut of 2017's Justice League, with Zack Snyder's Justice League generally proving much more popular than the theatrical version. From Joss Whedon, DC fans continue to call for Warner Brothers to give Ayer's Suicide Squad a similar treatment. In a new tweet, David Ayer confirms, hang on, it's jumped, where are we? I've got lost, hang on a minute. I'm back, right, so this is the tweet from the fan. This is Release the Ayer cut account. I had the honour of being shown the cut by David Ayer movies. No BS, 2 hours, 23 minutes of incredible, a totally different story. Forget the theatrical. This movie has a deeper message. Admin 1, he's calling himself. In a new tweet, David Ayer confirms that he's shown his director's cut of Suicide Squad to a fan. Ayer's tweet is in response to a fan with the account named Release the Ayer cut, who says the director personally showed him the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. I must say, I'm fucking jealous. I'm desperate to see that movie. The fan says the film has no BS and features a totally different story. That's interesting. In addition to being 13 minutes longer than the theatrically released version. Check out Ayer's tweet above. So basically all Ayer does, he quote tweets what Release the Ayer cut says, the account, he goes, facts. So that's very exciting. Although Ayer has made no secret of the fact that he would also like to see the Suicide Squad director's cut released It remains relatively unlikely that this will ever actually happen, despite Air occasionally adding fuel to the fire in terms of supporting the fans who called for its release. Warner Brothers has repeatedly made its position on the matter clear. While calls to release the Snyder Cut of Justice League ultimately prevailed, executives at Warner Brothers reportedly regret releasing the film because instead of satisfying fans, it only further rallied them against studio relationship. This is a journalist who's not being accurate with you and honest with you. The former leadership regretted releasing the Snyder Cut, but they never made the decision. Warner Brothers Pictures hated Zack and his vision. They're not the ones who made the decision. The people who owned Warner Media at the time, AT&T, and John Stankey, the CEO of the company, made that decision to help launch HBO Max. These are the facts. So it's not Warner Brothers Discovery who's ever said we won't release the Air Cut. It's the previous leadership. We don't know how Zaslav feels about this. Air showing a passionate fan his cut of Suicide Squad and tweeting about it seems to be another attempt from the director to keep energy high regarding campaigns to release the Air Cut. Well, it's unfortunate that studio interference seemingly derailed Air's version of Suicide Squad. It's now been 6 years since the film's release, and Warner Brothers clearly has other plans for the DCEU. We got a Donner cut about 20 years after Superman 2. We got the Snyder Cut 2017. What was that? 4 years after it. So you really don't know what you're talking about. Never lose hope. Although the chances of Air's cut Suicide Squad being released become smaller with each passing year, it's certainly commendable that so many fans continue to support the director and his intended vision for the film. This is what went wrong with the DCEU at the very beginning. There were ideas, Zack had his ideas, and then, Batman vs. Superman happened, a very divisive movie that didn't make the money they wanted, and it was the reactions were so toxic from some fans, and mostly all of Access Media. Now, it doesn't matter how well your movies are doing, if people are screaming, we hate this shit, it isn't good for business, that put pressure on the studio and they tried to go in another direction. What they should have done, right, they had no faith in Snyder, was fire Snyder immediately, don't let him do a scene of Justice League, say to Joss Whedon and Jeff Johns, you're in charge now, start a fucking again, relaunch it somehow. Instead of that, they tried to reapply Zack's vision. It was ridiculous, it's a mess, and I think everyone is to blame for what happened. But we can move forward now with an interesting vision, a vision that everyone, not just some people, but everyone can come to the table with, and let's hope that happens. Now, in terms of David Ayer's Suicide Squad Air Cut, never give up, never give up. This is a great move by David. Now, the release the Air Cut account can keep on giving us little teases and things like that. They're still fighting. I don't know what Zaslav thinks of this. If there's financial potential in this, he'll release it. If he thinks it's not worth his while, he won't. And if they want to move forward and stop looking back, maybe they will never release it. We'll have to wait and see. Let's just flash back to 2021 when we were building up to Zack Snyder's Justice League being released. Now, originally, if you remember, and I've spoken about this before, but I want to reiterate this stuff before we move forward with the new DCEU and the new vision and the 10-year plan, and whoever they go forward with as DC Studios president. So originally, when the Snyder Cut was announced, they were going to do it in episodes. This is how Zack pitched it to Hamada, Emmerich, Stankey, and Jason Kilar, everyone. There were going to be episodes. That's why you saw the chapters in the actual film we get today. Because originally it was going to be Zack Snyder's Justice League Season 1. Then they were going to do Zack Snyder's Justice League Season 2. Zack Snyder's Justice League Season 3. This would have been Justice League 2 and 3. But turned into a streaming TV series. It was locked to happen. So what changed? Well, all of a sudden, a fan asked Zack on Vero at the time, is it still in episodes? No, it's a movie. Once that happened, the Snyderverse was never, ever going to be restored. And let me explain why. From the moment Ray Fisher was stirring the shit and calling out Joss Whedon and all the shit that happened, I'm not saying that he was wrong or right to do this. I'm telling you what happened behind the scenes. once he was revealing all this shit, and Zack was saying a lot of stuff during the marketing of the Snyder Cut and the build-up to the Snyder Cut's release, the studio were pissed off because at one time Warner Brothers Pictures were against Zack and Ray, and AT&T and Stanky and all of them were backing them. But once they started revealing behind-the-scenes shit, AT&T, Stanky were very upset with them. There was a fallout and they said, you can release this movie. And there was a time when Zack nearly changed his mind about doing it because there was some fallout about lots of different things, like his Green Lantern, and they didn't even want him to use his Martian Manhunter. So there was a lot of problems behind the scenes. Ultimately, they came to an agreement. Just finish this fucking thing off, release it, then we never have to deal with each other again. So that's what went wrong. The Snyderverse was going to be restored. It was going to be the ultimate victory for the fans, but then Ray and Zack decided to get into histrionics and get revenge. I said this at the time. I'm not saying they're right or they're wrong, but it spoiled the build-up to something that us, the fans, were really looking forward to and fought for, hammer and tong. Those histrionics destroyed any opportunity at the time Zack had to restore the Snyderverse. So now the WB Pictures leadership has gone. AT&T, by the way, still has the major shareholding stake in Warner Brothers Discovery, but they're not running the company anymore. They've taken a back seat because they didn't know what they were fucking doing. They needed a troubleshooter. That's why they did the Discovery merger. So now with Zaslav in charge, some people think there's more of a chance to restore the Snyderverse, and that's what a lot of Snyderverse fans were putting out there. But ultimately, with AT&T still being the majority shareholders, they talk to Zaslav a lot. So it remains to be seen if the dream of the Snyderverse being restored ever happens. But what I'm saying is, if Zack had just kept his mouth shut, if Ray had just been the good soldier and kept his mouth shut. But they wanted justice. They wanted revenge. And ultimately, what happened was Ray fell on his sword and left the DC Extended Universe. A great performance by him in Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. We may never see him again. As Cyborg, they may need to recast. I hope that's not the way it ends up. But Zaslav hasn't come out and said Ray Fisher's staying. We apologise for what's happened in the past, even though it's nothing fucking to do with us. If the only victory we get is Ray remaining as Cyborg without restoring the Snyderverse, that's great. But Ray is pro-Zack Snyder. He's even working with him on Rebel Moon. I think if Zack doesn't come back, Ray doesn't come back, and that's a problem. And this is why the Snyderverse hasn't been restored. Because we fought, because there was an injustice done to Zack and the fans, so we fought. We released the Snyder Cut. And then Ray and Zack just couldn't keep their gobs shut. And this is why we are where we are now. So I think they're planning to move away from that and try and create something uncontroversial, something that everyone can get involved with and get excited by. And the news of Henry Cavill returning is so exciting. So yes, the main headlines on today's The DC Report is that Henry Cavill has signed a brand new WB contract. He will be involved with a brand new Superman movie. We don't know if it's a direct Man of Steel sequel or something brand new. Henry would never have just agreed to do cameos, but I believe now Henry will cameo in every single upcoming DCEU movie and get his own movie. Yes, he will be in The Flash. He won't be replaced by Supergirl anymore, and that's very exciting news. This has been the DC Report with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection, and I'll see you in the next video. Until we see each other again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.